Welcome to Orlando Magic Now. I'm Charles King here with the Magic insider Brian Schmitz to talk about the Orlando Magic. I have way too much enthusiasm, I think, right now based on
even after last night,
how things went last night.
You are a fan.
The Magic, even though they led at the half, lost to the Miami Heat 108-96. It's especially painful for the Magic to lose on opening night. Another layer of pain comes from losing to the Miami Heat, but then when you consider that the Heat had lost Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Luol Deng, 3 starters, 2 All-Stars, and the Magic have a lot of new players and a lot of hope for this season. It was a tough one, I think, for Magic fans last night.
Well, as Magic fans know, just last week in the preseason game in South Florida, Miami handled Orlando, and you're like, oh, okay, it's just a preseason game. Come on now. Starters don't play, things happen. And then when it's time for the regular season to start, the very same thing happened in the second half, the third quarter. The Heat just blitzed the Magic in the 30-point period. And it really, Hassan Whiteside put his stamp on the game, obviously, as a big guy, but it was the smaller people. It was the Heat's backcourt of Goran Dragic and Tyler Johnson who gave the Magic fits. That was the problem with their penetration and then falling back with jump shots and driving to the hoop relentlessly. And as Frank Vogel said afterwards, when teams go to a smaller lineup, we're really going to have to maybe counter with small guys of our own just to keep people out of the paint. 74 points in the paint against the Magic, and that was the most ever in franchise history that have been scored in the paint.
The question is, can the Magic go small? And like that, 16 offensive rebounds they gave up, and this team was built to be a team that was going to be good on the interior. Bismack Biyombo didn't play last night, serving a suspension. But yeah, we feel like the Magic probably could go pretty well if they go big with Biyombo, Ibaka, Gordon, a pretty good sized front line. But can they go small if a team wants to do that? Do they have the guards and the wing players to do that?
That's going to be Frank's challenge because other teams, they send scouts to games and they're going to pick up on this immediately. Now, it all depends on the matchups because the other teams may not have that type of style that the Heat have, that attacking, relentless style. But it's something that Vogel's going to have to say, look, Elfrid Payton, there's no reason at 22, 23 years old you can't be quick enough to stop these guys. But he's really struggling, and that was Payton's calling card as a college player. It's why they drafted him, that he was a very good on-ball defender.
And Skiles at times was frustrated last year about Payton giving up dribble penetration to other point guards.
And it starts, that's the head of the snake, as they say, with a point guard. And Evan Fournier, he's not a terrific athlete. And I thought last night at times the Heat exposed the Magic. They were quicker, and especially to the hoop, and got by them at will. And it wasn't anything to do with Whiteside screening everybody out. They were just quicker to the hoop. And Aaron Gordon, had trouble staying with his man. So maybe it is just it's going to take time on both ends of the floor, offense and defense. So we'll have to see how Vogel adjusts.
Okay, well, we've got some questions that were asked on Twitter. We're going to get to those in just a little while. We'll also break down this game a little bit more, talk about some of the players, Ibaka's first game, Mario Hezonja struggles, and we'll talk about the upcoming schedule for the Magic too. But before we do that, I want to comment quickly on last night's tribute to the Pulse victims. The Orlando Magic's really first opportunity to do something, and before the game, a pretty nice remembrance for those that lost their lives and their families and the first responders.
That was a very touching, moving, classy tribute by the Magic. Your first game of the season, it's really a conflict of everybody's excited, they're anticipated, but then we have this somber moment which you had to address, and they did it very well. It was a terrific song, and it was really an emotional beginning to the season. But for the 49 victims, this was really a great tribute by the team.
And they hung a banner in the rafters, a banner with the Lake Eola logo and the number 49, and all of the victims' names were also in that banner that they put up. That we expect to be up at least for the season, maybe indefinitely. I don't know if that was
I don't know what their plans are, but if you want to hang in there indefinitely, I think everybody would be in favor of that.
Sure.
Retire the number 49.
So back to the game. We got some questions about Twitter questions from some people about some of the players, and we want to go through some of those. Let's start first off. Here's a question from Sydney Ferris. It says, "What's wrong with Serge Ibaka's defense?" One game, Brian.
Nobody waits.
What's wrong with Serge Ibaka? The Magic traded for Ibaka, and he did have his best game, 6 for 17 on offense. But his question is about the defense. And Serge is a former, leader in the league in block shots, and just didn't seem to play very well on either side last night.
Well, you remember what your mother said, you'd never get a second chance to make a first impression, except in the NBA when you play another 81 games. Okay, everybody, like Aaron Rodgers said in Green Bay a couple years ago, everybody relax, okay? Just relax. Serge looked a little bit lost, out of his comfort zone, and you can probably understand why. All of a sudden, he's not in Oklahoma City anymore. He looks to his left, no Kevin Durant, looks to his right, no Russell Westbrook. So all of a sudden, he's kind of the guy. And he's not familiar with that role. And he looked a little hesitant at first, missed some shots, was trying to get it going. And they're still strangers a little bit. I mean, even though they've been in camp for almost a month, it still takes some time. As we saw with the Golden State Warriors, they get Kevin Durant, and they're not ready yet. I mean, they're still not in sync. They get beat by 29 by the San Antonio Spurs. So I think Serge Ibaka will be fine. He led the league in block shots twice, and I think he'll be an anchor in that defense, and especially when he gets to play with Bismack Biyombo.
Silver lining, you bring Ibaka in because not only is he supposed to be a pretty good rim defender and a pretty good defender overall, but he can stretch the floor. He did hit a couple of threes last night and showed that, that is a part of his game that could be useful. It
could be, but I don't want to see him fall in love with that three-point shot. Now, Serge is not a great post player, but still in certain matchups, there's no reason they can't give him the ball inside to work. Now, when you have Hassan Whiteside, like he's got, like a 80-foot wingspan, looks like, something out of a movie, it's really tough because Whiteside, he had an imprint of that entire game. Everybody was looking around, looking behind their, behind their shoulder for him, wherever he's going to come from. So they're not going to have that matchup every night. And I think Ibaka eventually will be fine. He'll be the player. I mean, he's the best power forward they've had since Horace Grant. You've got to go back a ways through a lot of power forwards to see that.
It's been almost 20 years.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go to Twitter to see what else Magic fans are angry about. All right, this is from Mavic. Game by game, it gets worse for Mario. He's talking about the second-year player, Mario Hezonja. Can the Magic force him next summer to stay and work with the team instead of playing again with his national team? I mean, 2 years in a row, he's played with Croatia, and I think he's insinuating that that's affected his development. Yeah,
well, I mean, the Magic thought just the opposite. The Magic thought that really helps him to keep playing with other guys, to keep developing, instead of just being in the gym by yourself with maybe an assistant coach throwing you the ball all the time after you've missed shots.
Right.
But there is some truth to that. Is you want to see, when is this kid going to take off? Now, Scott Skiles was pretty tough on him last year, as Scott is with a lot of players. I mean, you have to play the right way to earn your playing time on the floor. And Hezonja has the best jump shot on the team. I mean, it is picturesque. We all know that. But he really, to me, he just can't get his confidence going. And this confidence was the thing that everybody said was the knock on him, that he had too much of it.
Yeah, it seems like that's what I was going to ask you. The difference between what you heard about this guy when he was drafted, that maybe he was too confident, a cocky kid, and he looks very timid, if I'm being frank, out there on the court, unsure what to do with the ball. What has caused him to feel this way? Is it because he's not having immediate success?
Well, I think it's that, and it's the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a very good player, still young. I mean, he had a bit role overseas, so it wasn't like he played 25 minutes a game, he was scoring 20 points.
Right.
He still had a bit role as a young guy, but he has a great skill set that you can, you don't have to watch basketball to see that Mario Hezonja, has everything that you need. But they're going to have to, at some point, go with the guy, let him play through mistakes, and run plays for him. I mean, there's no reason that he can't get 5 shots a game coming off screens. And what they're opening themselves up for right now is that 2 years ago when they held the draft, Miles Turner was there.
Yeah, what a game he had last night.
Indiana is a forward, and last night for the Pacers, he had 30 points and 14 boards. Now, if you get a power forward like that, you don't need to trade for Serge Ibaka. You keep Victor Oladipo, and maybe you don't even have to pay $17 million a season for Bismack Biyombo, who was a backup center in Toronto. Now everybody loves to play the Rob Hennigan second-guessing game, and I just did, but that's out there.
Yeah, certainly. Hezonja was 1 for 5 against the Heat, and not a great game overall. Gordon at the 3, how do you like how that's looking so far? Do you feel like this is a position that he can work his way into over the course of the season?
Well, to be determined. I mean, he hasn't had a lot of, obviously hurt during training camp, missed some time, now switched to small forward. Look, everybody knows that if you were going to carve out a basketball player in a laboratory, you would make a mold of Aaron Gordon. I mean, terrific athlete, has all the skills, but his athleticism has to catch up with his basketball acumen too. I mean, there's a lot of great athletes that come into the NBA and they never really learn how to play the game. And I think Aaron, he's 21 years old, so let's give him that little bit of a break. But he has the skills. He's trying to develop the outside game. If he ever gets the jump shot going, forget it.
Yeah. Because
he'll be impossible because nobody can guard him going to the basket. But it's just a process. And I think the worst thing that happened is that Frank Vogel threw out a Paul George comparison, that I can do what with Aaron that we did with Paul George and developing him into an all-star. Yeah, easy on that. Just let him be Aaron Gordon.
Well, Aaron Gordon is playing the 3 because of the large number of front court players that the Magic have now.
Serge Ibaka and power forward.
And Vucevic, and I think that caused a lot of Magic fans to start asking questions in the offseason about which of these players is going to be traded, because it's just an abnormal group of players that play similar positions. Someone on Twitter after one game is already starting the questions again. Do you expect the Magic to make a big roster move by the trade deadline? If so, who's most likely to be moved? And I think a lot of people have been pointing to Nik Vucevic all offseason, but if you watched the game last night, who was steadier than Vucevic in the game, and over the last 3 years, who has been for the Magic?
I mean, yes, since they started this rebuild, you could always depend on Nick. Last season led the Magic in scoring, 18 points, about 9 rebounds a game. This guy is a horse. Now, not the most athletic guy in the world. We all know that. They're trying to get him to play better defensively, and I think he will. But he is a steadying force, and this is what I just don't get about the Bismack Biyombo signing and trying to split up minutes at the center position with those two guys. You have one guy that's his strength is offense, Biyombo, his strength is defense. Okay, so you tell me how you're going to split up playing time and get the most out of both of these guys. And I think for a while in the preseason, it affected Nick.
Yeah.
And I think the whole signing of Biyombo, it makes a young guy go, okay, what's my role? I've been here for, now this is my 5th season.
Borderline all-star.
And, everybody's talking to me about perhaps being an all-star. Now you bring this guy in, how's that going to work? And I still don't know. But I tell you what, could have helped a little bit to have some Biyombo last night against Whiteside.
Sure. Perhaps it's an accumulation of assets. I mean, maybe having Biyombo gives the Magic some more chances.
Oh, so that's the question is about trading after one game. Yes, love it. Must be fantasy basketball. He's got somebody he wants to. Now we got to remember, Serge Ibaka is in his contract year. Jeff Green in his contract year. And at some point, if the Magic season just doesn't go the way that they want it to, if they're not going to make the playoffs, and it's clear by the trade deadline, of course Rob Hennigan wouldn't be doing his job if he didn't entertain trade possibilities, because you don't want to lose Ibaka and Green for nothing. Now, obviously, you'll get it back on the salary cap and try to get somebody in free agency, but sure, you'd have to listen. I don't think it makes any sense on a team that's going to have trouble scoring to trade Nik Vucevic. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Now, at some point, you're going to need a point guard if things don't go well for Elfrid Payton. By the way, had a pretty good game last night. Pretty good game until Dragic got loose in that third quarter. So, I mean, I think at this stage, Charles, where they are, anything is possible. Yeah. You have to exercise everything to make your team better, whether it's trading Serge Ibaka for another young guy or not.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of been the theme with this team, the offseason as it comes closer, is anything's possible. This could be a team that competes for the playoffs, could be a team right back in the bottom of the East, looking at another lottery pick. All right, so coming up for the Orlando Magic go on the road, and we'll go visit Tobias Harris on Friday, October 28th, then go pay a visit to Channing Frye in Cleveland the following night.
It's a Magic alumni tour.
That's right. At the Pistons and at the Cavs, and then a couple days later at the 76ers. Cavs, Magic have not played well. Many teams have not played well
that's
against
a bad
Cleveland.
matchup.
But yeah, that's been a tough one.
Yeah.
Pistons and 76ers, a chance for the Magic to come back home 2-2. These are winnable games, but I think it's not necessarily important they win 2 games. It's important that they win something. Coming back home 0-4 would be a really tough pill to swallow.
Well, that's tough, and that's why the home opener against Miami, that's one you really needed to get, knowing that you're going on the road for 3 straight games, and you're going to play the defending NBA champions who have just wiped them out the last few years. I mean, and it's not going to get any better. So you have Detroit now. There's a chance in Detroit. They're missing Reggie Jackson. He's going to be out for a couple months. So they're missing their point guard.
They didn't look great last night.
And the Pistons kind of play big with Andrew Drummond. So they kind of play big, and Stan Van Gundy, the same philosophy he had here with Dwight, big guy, spread shooters around. So there's that. And then Philadelphia, I mean, come on. That is still a souped up D-League team. They play hard, but like the Heat, they're going to have guys that attack the basket. So that's not an easy win either. So, yeah, your best hope obviously is to get games at Detroit and Philly, and hope you have something left, because that's a back-to-back after you face the Cavaliers.
Yeah. First chance to see Biyombo will be at the Pistons on Friday. That's the next Magic game. 3 road games, then back at home to play Sacramento Kings the following Thursday, and then we'll play the Wizards at home 2 days later on that Saturday. So that wraps it up. Brian Schmitz believes that while there are some concerns with this team, relax a little bit. It's just
relax.
It's just one game. Let's see how this road trip goes, and then we'll reevaluate.
Yeah, because Biz is coming back.
That's right. Looking for all the silver linings possible at this point. So for Brian, I'm Charles. Thanks for watching Orlando Magic Now, and we'll be back next Thursday to do it again.